The restaurant had gone silent, forks midair, chairs stilled, because the black single dad at the piano had just played 3 notes that should not have existed anymore. Notes only one man ever wrote. In the back of the room, the CEO, cold, untouchable, feared by everyone, suddenly stopped breathing. Her eyes widened, her hand trembled, and for the first time in years, her mask cracked. Because the melody he played was the exact one her first love composed for her the night he disappeared without goodbye. And now, across the room, the unassuming pianist, wearing a worn jacket, fight-tired eyes, and a little girl's bracelet around his wrist, was playing it like it belonged to him. She whispered, barely audible, How does he know that song?" Every executive turned to her. But she was already walking toward the piano, shaken, terrified, and absolutely certain of one thing. This stranger wasn't a stranger at all. The melody drifted through the upscale restaurant like a ghost from a past no one dared mention. Most customers heard it as beautiful background music. Only one person felt it like a knife. CEO Alina Carter, iron-willed, precise, the kind of woman who built empires and broke barriers, had been reviewing quarterly figures when the first notes hit her, and instantly everything inside her collapsed. It wasn't just a song. It was the song. The private melody her first love, Jordan, wrote for her at 17. The one he played only once, under a street lamp behind the community center, promising that no matter where life took them, that melody would always mean, "I'm still here." But he never was. Days later, he vanished. No letter, no goodbye. Just silence. For 15 years, she buried that version of herself, the girl who believed in dreams, promises, and piano-playing boys with fire in their eyes. She built a fortress of steel and success to make sure nothing could ever hurt her again. Yet here she was, in a crowded restaurant, paralyzed by a melody no one else recognized. Her chest tightened as she turned toward the stage. The pianist wasn't dressed like anyone who should know that song. He wore a faded black jacket, sleeves rolled past tired wrists. His posture held both exhaustion and quiet pride. But what struck her hardest was the little girl sitting beside the piano, brown skin like his, tiny curls bouncing as she hummed along, swinging her legs happily. He wasn't performing for the crowd. He was performing for her. Alina tried to look away, to reason herself out of the panic rising in her throat, but then the man lifted his head. His eyes met hers, dark, steady, and carrying a recognition that made her stomach drop. Her breath faltered. No, it couldn't be. It was impossible. Yet those eyes, that stillness, that expression that used to calm her storms. Her mind screamed one truth she didn't want to face. The man everyone saw as just a struggling single father might be the boy she once loved, the one whose disappearance broke her. And as the final chord rang out, trembling in her chest like a long-lost heartbeat, the pianist whispered something only she could read from his lips. "Still here." Alina's legs felt unsteady as she stepped away from her table. Her assistants called her name, confused, but their voices sounded distant, like she was underwater, moving toward a shore she feared and needed at the same time. Every step closer to the piano amplified the storm inside her. The pianist, this man who looked impossibly familiar, lowered his hands from the keys. His daughter tugged at his sleeve, whispering something only he heard. He gave her a small, gentle smile before turning his attention fully to Alina. The intensity of his gaze made her breath catch. For a moment, neither of them spoke. It was the silence of 2 timelines colliding. Up close, she could see details she had missed before. The faint scar near his temple, the way his jaw tightened when he inhaled, the subtle shift in his eyes when he recognized pain he once caused. It all felt like someone had taken Jordan's face, her Jordan, and carved it into an older, wearier man. But there was one undeniable truth. He didn't just look like Jordan. He felt like him. His energy, his quiet confidence, the way he observed people without judging them. Her throat tightened painfully. I need to know where you learned that melody, Alina managed, her voice quieter than she intended. The man studied her carefully, as if deciding how much truth she could handle. Then he spoke. Deep voice, steady tone, unmistakable. I wrote it. The world spun. Her breath vanished. Her heart slammed once, twice, then froze altogether. No, that couldn't be. Jordan was gone. He had disappeared. He had. But the man continued, his expression unreadable. A long time ago. Her eyes stung, disbelief battling hope. That's impossible. The person who wrote it. She stopped herself. Her walls snapped back up. He left without explanation. He didn't come back. A flicker of guilt crossed his face, raw, unguarded. It was the same look Jordan had worn the night he told her he'd protect her from everything, even from himself. His daughter, sensing the tension, wrapped her little hand around his fingers. "Daddy," she whispered, "are you okay?" The single word hit Alina like a blow. Daddy. He had a child. A daughter. And he was raising her alone. Questions flooded her. Where had he been? Why did he leave? Why was he back now? Why did he look at her like he'd been carrying 15 years of regret? But she forced herself to remain composed. She was a CEO, feared, respected, untouchable. She would not crumble in the middle of a dining room. Still, her voice trembled. "What is your name?" He hesitated, just for a heartbeat, just long enough to confirm the truth she already sensed. He stopped, corrected himself. Miles. Miles. A name that didn't belong to him. A name that felt borrowed, protective, temporary. Her pulse pounded in her ears. She didn't know whether to scream, cry, or turn around and run. But something deeper, something she hated to admit, made her stay rooted in place. "What are you doing here?" she asked softly. His answer was simple, devastating, and nothing like she expected. "I'm trying to rebuild a life I ruined." The words stole the air from her lungs. He wasn't denying it. He wasn't hiding. He was speaking to her like a man finally done running. And for the first time since he vanished from her world, Alina felt the ground beneath her shift. Not from fear, but from the terrifying possibility that the story she buried might not be over. Not yet. Alina stood frozen, her mind a battlefield of memories and questions. Her polished exterior, so carefully built over years of boardrooms, mergers, and ruthless decisions, felt dangerously thin in front of this man who carried her past inside his eyes. "Miles," she repeated, tasting the false name. "If you're rebuilding your life, why start with my melody?" He exhaled slowly, looking down at the little girl still holding his hand. His daughter peeked up at Alina with curious, unguarded innocence, an expression Alina hadn't worn since she was 17. "It wasn't meant for you to hear," he said quietly. "I played it for her." He nodded toward the child. "She likes soft songs before dinner. They calm her." Alina's heart twisted. Seeing him as a father, gentle, present, protective, was something her younger self would never have imagined. The Jordan she knew wanted to travel the world, chase big dreams, outrun the shadows of the streets they grew up on. Responsibility wasn't something he wore easily, but the man in front of her had it woven into his bones. "And the name?" she asked. "Miles?" His jaw tightened. Names change when lives change. She absorbed that in silence. The corporate predators she negotiated with daily were predictable compared to the mystery of this man. She could read a balance sheet in seconds, a hostile takeover in minutes, but she couldn't read him. Not anymore. "Where have you been all these years?" she finally asked. He looked away then, and that alone told her more than words. Shame. The kind a person carries for a decade because it grows heavier the longer it's kept silent. "Away," he murmured. "Too far to come back. And too ashamed to try." Her breath hitched. "So, you left without a word?" "I thought I was protecting you." His voice cracked for the first time, barely, but enough that her defenses wavered. "There were things happening then. Things I didn't want touching you. When I disappeared, it wasn't because I stopped loving you. It was because I did." Her stomach twisted in anger and grief. "You destroyed me, Jordan." His eyes closed at the name, Jordan, like a wound reopening. "And I've paid for that every day since." Before she could respond, his daughter tugged at him again. "Daddy, why is she sad?" Alina stiffened. Sad? She never allowed emotions to surface in public. It was her cardinal rule. Jordan, Miles, knelt beside his daughter, brushing a curl from her cheek. "She's not sad, sweetheart. She's remembering something." The child nodded solemnly, satisfied. Then she looked up at Alina and smiled. A small, sunshine-soft smile that pierced through Alina's armor with unsettling ease. "Daddy's music is pretty," the girl said. "Did you like it?" Like it? It had torn her open. But instead of answering, Alina turned to Jordan. "Why come back now?" she asked. "After all these years?" He stood slowly, meeting her gaze without the boyish charm he once used, without excuses. Because running stopped working. Because he gently squeezed his daughter's hand. "Deserts is better. And because every version of my life led me back to this moment." Her heart thudded painfully. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He wasn't begging for another chance. He was simply here. And that terrified her more than anything. "You expect me to believe any of this?" she whispered. "No," he said calmly. "I expect you to walk away. But I hoped you wouldn't." That single confession shattered the last bit of distance between them. Because despite everything, his disappearance, her success, their separate worlds, Alina realized one truth she couldn't unsee. He wasn't here to reopen the past. He was here because fate had dragged him back, unfinished business and all. And she wasn't ready for what that meant. The restaurant manager approached timidly, interrupting the tension. "Ma'am, your table is waiting. And sir, are you finished with your set?" His eyes shifted nervously between them. Even he sensed something powerful unfolding. Jordan, still wearing the borrowed name Miles, offered a courteous nod. "Yes, we're done for the evening." The manager stepped away, but the spell was already broken. Alina inhaled sharply, trying to reclaim her composure. She was a CEO, a strategist, a woman who built a billion-dollar empire by never letting emotion cloud her judgment. So why were her hands still trembling? "You can't just show up playing that song," she said, voice low, controlled. "Not after everything." His expression was a weary acceptance, like he'd expected this. I wasn't trying to pull you back. I didn't even know you'd be here. She hated how true that sounded. Before she could challenge him again, the little girl released her father's hand and waddled closer to Alina, her eyes bright with the unfiltered boldness only children carried. "Are you Daddy's friend?" the girl asked. The question hit harder than it should have. Alina knelt lightly, lowering herself to the child's level. "I used to be," she answered softly. The little girl studied her face, then pointed proudly at Jordan. "Daddy's the bravest person I know. He said brave people become heroes when they help others." Alina's throat tightened. He used to say that. To her. Back when they were nothing but two dreamers with scraped knees and shared secrets. "Come on, sweetheart," Jordan murmured gently. "Give the lady some space." But the girl wasn't finished. She leaned in closer, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "Daddy doesn't take breaks. He works at night. A lot. And he plays that song when he misses someone." Alina froze. Jordan closed his eyes, clearly wishing his daughter hadn't said that. The girl skipped back to him, completely unaware of the emotional nuclear bomb she had just dropped. It was Alina who spoke first, her voice barely more than a breath. "You miss someone?" His answer came after a long, painful pause. "Yes." "Who?" He swallowed once, eyes steady and unflinching. "The girl I left behind." Every muscle in her body tightened. She knew the truth. She knew the meaning. She refused to accept it. "Don't," she whispered sharply. "Don't bring me into your regrets." His tone softened. "I'm not trying to. But running from them hasn't fixed anything. Then why didn't you come back before now?" His shoulders rose and fell, as if decades of regret lived inside that single motion. "Because I wasn't the man who deserved to stand in front of you. Not then. Maybe not even now." Her heart hammered violently, anger, grief, longing all demanding space. "I built a life without you," she said. "A successful one. A controlled one." He nodded. "I know. I followed your rise from afar. Every headline, every feature. You became everything I always knew you would." "And you?" Her gaze slid to the piano, the frayed jacket, the tired eyes. "What happened to your life?" Jordan looked down at his daughter, Bruce, shing a hand over her small shoulder. "She happened, and she saved me in ways I didn't know I needed." The child leaned into his leg, trusting, content. Something in Alina cracked at that, because once upon a time she dreamed of being part of a family with him, a dream she buried under deadlines and corporate armor. "Alina," he said quietly, "I'm not asking you for anything. Not forgiveness, not a second chance. But you deserve to know the truth. I didn't stop loving you. I only stopped believing I was good for you." She felt the breath leave her chest. That was the problem. He was still speaking the language of her heart, a language she'd spent 15 years trying to forget. And now, hearing it again, she didn't know whether to run from him entirely or finally demand the answers she had been owed for half her life. Alina stepped back, needing space, needing air. The restaurant suddenly felt too small, too intimate, too filled with ghosts she thought she'd buried. She headed toward a quieter corner near the oversized windows overlooking the city skyline. Jordan followed, but kept a cautious distance, as if afraid one wrong move would shatter her completely. "You should have stayed away," she said without turning around. He remained silent for a moment, then replied softly, "Maybe. But life has a way of dragging unfinished truths into the light." She closed her eyes. You didn't give me a truth. You gave me a disappearance. She heard his footsteps stop behind her. I know. Do you? Her voice rose, quiet, but edged with pain. Do you know what happens to a 17-year-old girl when the person she trusted more than anyone just vanishes? I do, he said, and his voice cracked enough that she knew he meant it. Because I lived with that guilt every day. She finally turned toward him, eyes burning. Then tell me why. The question hung between them like a blade. Jordan took a long, steady breath, the kind a man takes when he knows telling the truth will cost him something. After that night, he began, some people came looking for me, people I'd crossed paths with when I was stupid, angry, and trying to survive. They gave me a choice. Leave, disappear, or drag the girl I loved into the mess I created. Her chest tightened. She had known bits of his troubled past, but not this. I was 17, Lena, he said softly. I didn't know how to fix it. I just knew staying would destroy you. She blinked. So you left me to destroy me instead? His expression broke. I thought the pain of losing me was safer than the danger of keeping me. Her voice trembled. You didn't even say goodbye. I couldn't, he whispered. If I saw you again, even once, I wouldn't have been able to walk away. Silence. Raw, exposed, heavy. Outside, the city lights flickered across the glass, reflecting two people who looked like strangers and soulmates at the same time. And after you left? She asked. I ran, he admitted. State to state, job to job, until music became the only thing that kept me steady. And your daughter? Alina asked, glancing at the child who was coloring quietly at the piano bench. Jordan's gaze softened. Her mother passed away when she was a baby. It's just been the two of us since. The truth hit her unexpectedly hard. Jordan, reckless Jordan, raising a child alone. That wasn't the boy she knew. That was a man forged by struggle. You think telling me all this fixes anything? She asked bitterly. No, he said. I think you deserve closure. And if that means you never want to see me again, I'll accept it. Closure. The word felt wrong, too small, too final. Because every instinct in her said this wasn't closure. This was the reopening of a wound she was never allowed to heal. Alina crossed her arms, trying to steady herself. Why that song? Why still play it after all these years? His answer was immediate. Because it was the only good thing I ever made that I wasn't ashamed of. Her breath shattered. He stepped closer, still careful, still respectful. And because it was yours long before it was mine. She hated that he could still say things that reached straight into the part of her she'd locked away. You should go, she whispered. He nodded. If that's what you want. She didn't reply. He began to turn away, taking his daughter's hand. But before he could take a second step, she said the words she never planned to speak aloud. That song was a promise. He froze. And you broke it. Slowly, Jordan faced her again. Eyes unshielded, regret carved into every line of his face. I know, he said. But if you'll let me, I can explain the part of the story I've never told anyone. Her pulse quickened. There was more? After everything he'd admitted? For the first time, she wasn't sure if she wanted the truth or feared it. Jordan didn't speak right away. He seemed to be wrestling with a truth he'd guarded for years, something heavier than danger, guilt, or regret. His daughter wandered a few feet away, happily occupied with her coloring book, leaving the two of them suspended between past and present. Alina folded her arms, her voice steadying with an executive's sharpness. If you have something to say it. I'm not 18 anymore. I don't break easily. Jordan met her eyes, slowly, deliberately. That's what I was afraid of, he replied. That you learned to stop breaking because of me. She drew in a sharp breath, her composure flickering. Don't turn this into poetry, Jordan. You owe me the truth. He nodded. Then let me give it to you. He motioned toward an empty booth along the wall. Can we sit? It's not a short story. She hesitated, every rational fiber in her body screaming at her to walk away. But the desperate, buried part of her that still remembered summer nights and piano melodies urged her to stay. Finally, she sat. Jordan took the seat opposite her. He clasped his hands together on the table, knuckles tense. When I disappeared, he began, I wasn't just running from trouble. I was protecting something. He paused. Someone. Alina's heartbeat stuttered. Someone? Her voice cracked despite her effort to contain it. Jordan nodded. My grandmother. Of all the explanations she expected, violence, crime, impulsive fear, this wasn't one of them. She raised me after my father left and my mother struggled, he continued, but she got sick, fast. We didn't have money, and the people I owed, they knew. They were going to use her as leverage to get me to cooperate. Alina's breath tightened. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were planning scholarships, internships, a future so bright I needed sunglasses just to keep up, he said softly. You were days away from your big audition at the conservatory. I couldn't pull you into the shadows I lived in. You deserved a future untouched by all the ways mine was falling apart. Her eyes glimmered. She had never forgotten that audition. It was the day she found out he was gone. What happened to her? Alina asked quietly. I took her across state lines, found her a caretaker, worked every job I could, kitchens, gas stations, construction, whatever paid under the table. I never told her I'd left someone behind. She already blamed herself for too many things. And after she passed? Jordan swallowed hard, grief flickering across his features. After she passed, I tried to come back, more than once. But every time I did, I saw you somewhere on TV or in the papers, winning awards, leading panels, becoming the woman I always knew you'd become. He forced a weak smile. And I realized you didn't need the boy who broke everything. Alina felt something inside her twist so deeply she wasn't sure if it was relief, heartbreak, or anger. You still should have come back, she said. The words came out quieter, softer. You should have given me the choice. I know, he whispered, and that's the regret I wake up with every day. Silence hung between them, thick, emotional, impossible to escape. Finally, Alina asked, And your daughter? Where does she fit into all of this? Jordan looked toward the little girl. She's my entire world, he said. Her mother, she struggled with addiction. I tried to help her, but she didn't want help. When our daughter was born, she left. I raised her on my own. The simplicity of the statement hit harder than the words themselves. This man, who once dreamed of escaping his broken world, had become the anchor for a little girl who depended on him completely. And suddenly, Alina saw him not just as the boy she lost, but the man he became. A flawed man. A hurting man, but one who loved deeply. Why tell me all this now? She asked, her voice shaky but firm. Jordan exhaled. Because when I saw your face tonight, I realized I may have been wrong about something. Wrong about what? He leaned forward, eyes steady, raw, unguarded. That maybe you didn't stop needing the truth, as much as I never stopped needing to give it. Her pulse stopped. In that moment, she understood. Whatever came next would change everything. Alina leaned back, trying to steady her breathing. Everything she had built, her composure, her identity, her unforgiving strength, felt threatened by the truth now laid bare in front of her. Jordan's confession was not the closure she expected. It was the beginning of 1,000 questions she wasn't ready to ask. "And what exactly," she said slowly, "do you think I needed from you after all these years?" Jordan didn't flinch. "Not me. The truth. The real one. The one I should have given you before I left." Her jaw tightened. "Truth doesn't erase 15 years. "No," he said quietly, "but it can stop the next 15 from being built on pain." So, something in her chest pinched sharply, because for a moment she imagined those next 15 years, and she hated that her mind didn't imagine them alone. She looked away, staring at the window. Across the glass, she saw her reflection. Cold, flawless, guarded. But tonight, for the first time in years, she also saw the faint outline of the girl she used to be. Hopeful, trusting, full of possibility. "A part of me," she whispered, "never forgave you. And another part never stopped wondering." Jordan's breath hitched, as though the words cut deep. "I know," he said. "I felt it every time I played that melody." She closed her eyes. "Stop saying that." "Saying what?" His voice softened. "That the song still belongs to us." "It always did," he replied. "You were the reason it existed." Her composure cracked. She inhaled sharply, swallowing the emotion rising in her throat. She hated that he still knew exactly where her weaknesses lived. "Jordan, you have no idea what your disappearance did to me," she whispered. "I spent years trying to understand why I wasn't enough to stay for." His eyes widened with pain. "It was never about you. It was about the danger around me." She shook her head. "It doesn't matter. You still left." He didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He simply nodded, absorbing every word like a penance. A moment passed before he spoke again, voice low, weighted with something she couldn't name. "There's one more thing I need to tell you." Her eyes flickered up, wary. "More?" "Yes." He clasped his hands, preparing himself. "You deserve the whole truth." She braced herself. "Then say it." Jordan looked at his daughter again, watching her hum quietly as she colored, and something shifted in his expression. A mixture of love, fear, and a heartbreak so deep it made Alina's lungs tighten. "When her mother left," he said slowly, "she told me something before she walked out the door, something I didn't want to believe at first." He paused. Alina froze. "What did she tell you?" she asked. Jordan's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "She said my daughter wasn't hers." Alina stared at him, stunned. "What?" Jordan nodded. "She said the baby wasn't biologically hers, that she'd taken the child from someone who couldn't protect her, someone who didn't even know she existed." A chill ran through Alina. "You mean she abandoned her," he said, emotion thickening his voice. "Left her on our doorstep with nothing. No name, no records, nothing." Alina's breath caught. The little girl, an orphan, found, not born. "She isn't just my daughter," Jordan said quietly. "She's a child who had no one, and I became her someone." Alina's heart clenched, because the tenderness he carried for that child was overwhelming. But Jordan wasn't done. "There's another part," he said. The part I never said because I was afraid of what it would do to you. She swallowed hard. Tell me. He looked straight into her eyes, raw, vulnerable, terrified. When I saw her for the first time, she looked like someone I used to know. Alina's pulse stopped cold. What do you mean? Someone you used to know, she whispered. Jordan hesitated, just long enough for fear to bloom inside her. Then he spoke the sentence that changed everything. She looked like you. The world tilted beneath her feet, and the truth she thought she wanted suddenly felt dangerous to hear. Alina's breath vanished. For a moment she genuinely wondered if she heard him wrong, if her mind had filled in the silence with the one thing she wasn't prepared to face. She looked like... me? She repeated, barely audible. Jordan nodded once. Not dramatic, not theatrical, just honest, painfully honest. When I first held her, he continued, I thought it was grief playing tricks on me, or guilt, or hope I didn't deserve. But the more she grew, the more I saw it. The shape of her eyes, the line of her jaw, the woo. She frowns when she concentrates. She reminded me of you. Alina's pulse thundered in her ears. No. No, that was impossible. This was too far, too unreal, too destabilizing. Jordan, she said, forcing herself to breathe. You cannot say something like that without explaining what you mean. Are you telling me she's... No, he interrupted gently but firmly. She is not your biological child. I would never deceive you like that. Her lungs finally took air again, shakily, unevenly. Then why would you say she looks like me? Because she does, he said simply. Enough that it scared me at first. Enough that sometimes I would wake up and wonder if fate was punishing me, or giving me a second chance I didn't know how to hold. His voice thickened. She reminded me of the life I should have fought for, the girl I abandoned, the future I threw away. Alina swallowed the lump rising in her throat. So you kept her because she looked like a replacement for what you lost? His expression shattered at the implication. No. I kept her because the moment I saw her, I knew she needed someone. And because if I let her go, I'd be proving I was still the same coward who walked away from you. The honesty in that broke something loose inside her chest. The restaurant felt suddenly too loud, too bright, too present, while her mind drifted somewhere between past pain and a future she couldn't comprehend. You built a whole life around raising a child who wasn't yours, she whispered. Alone. He nodded. I didn't know what I was doing at first. I was terrified. But she became my purpose, my anchor, the reason I stopped running. And the reason you came back here? His silence was telling. Not intentionally, he admitted. I wasn't looking for you. I didn't think I had the right to. But when a man has a child, he starts wanting stability, community, a real home. So I came back to the city I once loved, even if I didn't belong in it anymore. Alina stared at him. All those times she pictured meeting him again, she imagined anger, demands, maybe even closure. She never imagined this. A man trying to rebuild himself from broken pieces, carrying a child he saved, playing a melody he wrote for her, still haunted by a promise he failed to keep. And why? She asked quietly. Why tell me now that she looks like me? Jordan's eyes were raw. Because seeing you tonight, after all these years, made me realize something I've tried not to admit. He leaned forward, voice barely a whisper. My daughter didn't just remind me of you. She reminded me of the man I was supposed to be with you. Alina's heart lurched painfully. And I needed you to know, he continued, that I didn't choose her in place of you. I chose her because she needed me, and because losing you taught me what happens when I fail the people I love. Silence pressed in. Heavy, transformative, dangerous. Alina steadied herself with both hands on the table. Jordan, this is too much. You show up out of nowhere. You play a melody that broke me once, and now you're telling me your daughter, your entire world, looks like me? Yes, he said, unwavering. Why? She demanded, voice cracking. What does that even mean? His answer came without hesitation. It means you were never gone from my life, even when I wasn't in yours. Her chest tightened so sharply she almost doubled over. This wasn't the ending she expected. This wasn't closure. This was the beginning of a truth she wasn't sure she could survive. A truth that demanded one final question. If she wasn't his daughter's biological mother, then why did fate lead him right back to the woman the child resembled? Alina pushed back from the table, her pulse unsteady, her thoughts spiraling faster than she could anchor them. Everything about tonight had become a storm, one she didn't authorize, didn't prepare for, and definitely wasn't equipped to navigate. Jordan, you can't expect me to process all this at once, she said, her voice trembling despite her effort to maintain control. You disappear for 15 years. You show up with a daughter. Then you tell me she looks like me, as if fate is sending you messages through a child. He didn't flinch. He didn't retreat. He simply absorbed her words with the quiet strength of a man who had already lived through his own destruction. I know, he said softly. It sounds insane. And maybe it is. But so is surviving the worst years of your life because of a melody you wrote for someone you never forgot. His vulnerability was suffocating. It was too raw, too real. Jordan, what do you want from me? She whispered. His answer was immediate. Nothing. The simplicity of the word startled her. I didn't come here to win you back, he said. I didn't come to reopen wounds. I didn't even come looking for you. But when I saw you, when I saw your face as I played that melody, I realized there's something I owed you more than an apology. What? She breathed. The truth, he said. All of it. Not the cleaned-up version. The real one. He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. The day I left, I wasn't just protecting my grandmother. I was protecting you from something else, something you never knew. Her heart skipped. What do you mean? He swallowed hard. The people who came after me. They mentioned your name. Alina's blood ran cold. What? They knew we were close, he continued. They knew you mattered to me, and they said if I didn't disappear quietly, they'd make sure you lost more than just a boyfriend. Their words, not mine. Alina stared at him, stunned, silent. I left because staying meant risking your life, he said, voice thick with old fear. I knew you'd follow me if I told you. You would have stood beside me even if it destroyed you. So I gave. You a life where I was the only thing you lost, not everything. For a moment she couldn't breathe. You should have trusted me, she said, her voice breaking. You should have let me choose. I was 17, Lena, he whispered. I didn't know how to let someone choose between love and survival. She turned away, pressing a trembling hand to her mouth. She thought she had been abandoned out of carelessness, out of immaturity. But he had been running from something lethal and protecting her from it. I never knew, she whispered. You weren't supposed to, he replied, because if you did, you would have come after me, and you would have been hurt. She wiped her eyes quickly, furious at herself for letting tears fall in front of him. And your daughter? She asked shakily. Why does she resemble me? Jordan hesitated. Not because he was hiding something, but because the truth was heavy. "She looks like you because she came into my life at the moment I needed forgiveness I couldn't ask for," he said quietly. "She reminded me of hope, of second chances, of the part of my life that wasn't ruined." Alina pressed her palm to the table to steady herself. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't random. This felt orchestrated by a universe she had stopped believing in. "So what now?" she whispered. Jordan drew in a breath. Not hopeful, not desperate, just honest. "Now," he said, "you know why I left, and what it cost me." He stood slowly. "And if this is the last conversation we ever have, then at least you finally know the truth." Her heart twisted painfully, because even after everything, she didn't want him to walk away again. But she couldn't trust her voice. Not yet. He reached for his daughter's hand. The little girl hopped down from the piano bench, humming softly, the same melody that once bound two hearts together. Jordan turned to leave. But then he paused. Without looking back, he said one final line that shattered her. "I lost you once, Alina. I won't take another step unless you tell me to." Her breath caught, because for the first time in 15 years, the choice was finally hers. Alina stood rooted to the floor, her breath shallow, her hands trembling at her sides. Jordan's words, "I won't take another step unless you tell me to," hung in the air like a fragile thread between them. The restaurant noise faded into a distant hum. Her entire world narrowed to one man and one moment she had been unknowingly preparing for her whole life. For 15 years, she had built herself into a fortress, steel, control, brilliance. But tonight, that fortress had cracked, brick by brick, as the truth she'd never heard finally poured out. "Jordan," she whispered. He didn't turn around. He didn't breathe. He stood completely still, waiting for her command, ready to accept whatever she decided, even if it meant losing her again. She swallowed hard. "You left to protect me?" "Yes," he answered, voice low. "And I stayed away because I didn't think I deserved to come back." "And now?" "Now," he said, "I'm standing here, letting you decide if my journey ends or begins again." His daughter squeezed his hand gently, unaware of the magnitude of the moment. Alina's eyes softened as she watched the child, innocent, hopeful, safe because of a man who once didn't know how to save himself. A man she had loved, a man she might still, against every defense she had built. Slowly she stepped toward him. "You hurt me," she said, "more than anyone ever has." "I know. You broke a promise." "I did. And you changed my life without asking." "I regret that every day." Her voice wavered but didn't break. "But you also saved me. And maybe I need to stop punishing you for that." Jordan exhaled shakily, his shoulders trembling with the weight of 15 years of regret. "Turn around," she whispered. He did, slowly, cautiously, as if afraid she'd disappear if he moved too fast. His eyes were glossy, vulnerable, honest, in a way only a man with nothing left to hide could be. "I don't know where we go from here," she admitted. "I don't know what this means. But I know one thing." "What?" he breathed. "You don't walk away tonight. Not again." Jordan's knees almost buckled with relief. His daughter beamed, not understanding the depth of it, only sensing the warmth growing between the grown-ups. Alina knelt and smiled gently at the little girl. "Do you like ice cream?" The child nodded enthusiastically. "Yes." "Good," Alina said. Because your father and I have years to talk about, and that might take a few scoops. Jordan laughed under his breath, a quiet, broken laugh that felt like a man finally exhaling after years underwater. He didn't reach for Alina. She didn't reach for him. But the distance between them had changed, small now, crossable, filled with possibility rather than pain. Some stories don't get rewritten, but some finally get continued. And as they stepped out into the cool night air, Jordan on one side, his daughter on the other, and Alina walking beside them, she felt something she hadn't felt in 15 years. A beginning. A fragile one. A risky one. But a beginning nonetheless. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you wonder about second chances, subscribe for more emotional, real-life inspired stories. Your support helps us bring powerful narratives like this to life. Stay tuned. Your next favorite story is just one click away.